Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's an honor to be here with you in Madrid. And like Remedios, I was quite daunted by the task of preparing this talk for you. I'm not a music expert either. So I thought I'd better go straight to the internet, do some research, and type music and leadership into a search engine. And I found myself drawn very quickly to descriptions of management training courses which use orchestral conductors as metaphors for good leadership. I became even more nervous talking to you because you clearly do know not just about music, but about leadership. There are many great conductors, of course, but I wondered about the other leaders in music, people who choose to lead not because they've got a particular role, but because they want to make a difference. For me, leadership isn't simply about position and status. It's about who you are. It's about your values and what matters to you. It's about your behavior, how you relate to other people. And it's about your judgment, the choices you make, the decisions, as Simon said, and the actions you take. So in this talk, I'm going to draw on practical experience, my own and others working across the arts. I'll share some thoughts with you on the role of the leader and talk more about the leadership values, attributes, behaviors, and skills that cultural leaders need to have in the 21st century. And I'll finish by talking a bit about the ways in which leaders can be developed. But first of all, I thought I'd tell you a short story about one leader I know. I've chosen him not because he's famous or has a fancy job title, but because he's true to himself and has achieved great things for and with other people through his work. His name is Matt Peacock, and for me, Matt demonstrates the empathy, passion, courage, and big picture thinking that leaders need today. There's congruence between his values, his behaviors, and his actions. Matt was originally an opera critic. He was working as a young man between London and New York. And in both cities, as well as being completely engaged in opera, he was very troubled by the plight of homeless people. And he decided to do something about it when he was in London as a volunteer in a night shelter. And it was then that he heard something that changed his life. A British politician described homeless people as the people you trip over when you leave the opera house. Matt, like many others, was incensed, but more importantly, he was inspired to do something about it. He decided to combine the two things he cared most about and created Streetwise Opera, bringing together homeless people and professional opera singers to create high-quality, exciting productions of music theatre. And he's been doing that for more than a decade now. Earlier this year, the BBC broadcast Streetwiser's version of Bach's Passion. Here it is, performed by homeless people and the 16, and jointly created by them with Sir James Macmillan. A few years ago, Matt persuaded the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden to host an event as part of the Olympic celebrations in London, an event which brought together homeless people, hundreds of them, to make music and to sing. This was unprecedented. It was the first time in history that any event for homeless people was included in the Olympics. And perhaps most satisfying of all, Matt has proved that politician wrong. Thanks to him, homeless people could be the people you meet inside the opera house. So not surprisingly, Matt's been working in Brazil this year. He's been to Tokyo to talk about how homeless people can be involved in the 2020 Olympics. He's dedicated himself to setting up an international movement for arts and homeless people, and he's stepping down as chief executive of Streetwise to start on this new adventure. His work has transformed the lives of those involved, for some, helping them start a journey into employment and independence, for others, giving them a sense of self-esteem and the confidence to reconnect after many years, to reconnect with their family members. Matt respects and values what each person has to offer. This is Matt. He's a quiet, modest person, but he knows what matters to him. He has clear values, and he combines artistic sensibility with practical organizational skills and courage. He's given homeless people a voice. He shows how leaders can create work that is locally relevant but has international resonance. He shows that leaders need to be ambitious for their organization or cause rather than just for themselves. And very different contexts, and you will have stories to share. Across the world, other music organizations are standing up for what they believe, often led by artists. But I wonder, as one of the other speakers said, if we pay enough attention to this in music, theatre and dance conservatoires, and in the continuous professional development of performers. From an early age, we should prepare people not only to dance, act, or play their instruments brilliantly, but also give them the confidence and skills to exercise leadership when the opportunity arises. Sometimes these opportunities don't take the form of a training course. When I ran an education program for a ballet company, the dancers who went into schools to lead workshops became better stage performers. Through working more autonomously in a different environment to the rehearsal studio or stage, and by engaging in conversations about their work with young people outside the ballet world, they gained confidence, self-esteem, and broader perspectives, and that was reflected in the quality of their performances. Later in their careers, a fair number of them went on to become leaders in dance companies, in schools, and in national organizations. But being a leader isn't getting any easier, and I don't need to tell you that. We're all living in a more fluid, insecure, uncertain, and unequal world. The complexity and pace of external change means as leaders, we need to be much clearer about our direction and purpose if we're not to be buffeted and knocked off course by unfavorable winds. Today's leaders must be open to unexpected opportunities, as Matt's story showed. When I was speaking to dance producer Farouk Chowdhury about this, he compared cultural leaders to bamboo. And I rather like that image. Like bamboo, leaders should be both resilient and flexible, swaying in the wind but never breaking. Another of the key characteristics of cultural leader nowadays is a willingness to share responsibility and power, perhaps sometimes even to give it away. I was thinking about a TED talk I looked at recently as part of my research for today, Lead Like the Great Conductors, in which the speaker quoted a friend as saying, if you love something, give it away. So the power that comes with your role or job title can give you the power to reward, but it also could give you the power to coerce. But you also have other power that comes from your expertise, your networks, your personality, from who you are. As a leader, you use all those forms of power generously and responsibly. The application of power requires care and judgment and should be used for a shared purpose, otherwise it can lead to damaging and unacceptable behaviors such as bullying, harassment, and discrimination. Leaders shouldn't try and control other people's tastes and values, and Simon spoke about this just now, but create opportunities for them to be empowered, to be authentic, to have self-esteem, and to realize themselves as the performers at Streetwise are. Leadership is about liking and respecting others, generously developing and fostering relationships rather than being fixated on command and control. Leaders are concerned about something greater than themselves. According to the Mexican conductor Alondra de la Parra, this is what can happen when you play music. You all know this. When the whole orchestra is engaged in the moment, she said, and being completely selfless, something incredible happens at a human level and a spiritual level. Very few people can say they go to work with 100 people simultaneously, and the common goal is to make people happy. Your experience, this experience, can be translated to other organizations too, and to the way you run your music organizations. Effective teams are brought together not on the basis of hierarchical structures, but because there's a job to be done, and that particular combination of individuals has the skills, experience, talent, and ideas needed for particular projects and tasks. A committed, collaborative team is enabled to play to its strengths, with individuals discovering qualities and ideas they didn't know they had, and being given positive feedback to help them recognize it. The leader makes everyone feel valued. They don't just blow their own trumpet. I'm talking about a kind of humility in leadership. Sometimes the conductor needs to step off the podium and stand alongside and with the orchestra to take the applause. It's a team effort. It's my belief that most people are much better than they think they are, and with coaching, training and support can work beyond the boundaries of job descriptions. Leaders can provide a framework rather than a control in which others can excel. They're trusted to deliver, and to deliver in a way that suits them best. They're given a degree of autonomy and their contribution acknowledged, not ignored, as can sometimes happen. I'm not sure if Richard Strauss really said that. Leaders don't underestimate the importance of conversations, and at the same time, they're really great listeners, which is a skill most musicians have, along with a facility for non-verbal communication. Both are essential for good leadership. You need to be able to read other people well. As Jim Krupe said, the key to understanding the music of leadership is to understand that really good leaders know how to manage emotions as well as directions. And of course, sometimes you do have to lead from the front, wage a charm offensive to encourage others to hold their nerve and give them faith and confidence. I've talked a lot about the role of the leader within their organization, but of course, that role extends beyond the organization. Leaders need to be outward-facing, building partnerships with others beyond their specialism, with the cultural sector, their locality, outside their comfort zone. They should be actively engaged in change, recognizing the role that culture can play in strengthening citizenship, communities, and helping to build a better society. They are responsible and generous in their external relations as well as their colleagues. They'll be innovators, pioneering new models for sustainable, vibrant organizations and communities. This is my attempt to draw what leadership looks like, and I've put creativity right at the heart of it. All this, of course, requires the developing and honing of skills, and I'll finish my talk by talking about the development of skills and leadership abilities. Financial management, strategic planning, fundraising, and business innovation are essential, of course, but alongside that, leaders need to be digitally literate. They must be strong negotiators, able to build partnerships and alliances beyond culture. They should have a knowledge and understanding of politics at all levels so they can be civic players. And they should have advocacy skills which they can adapt to different audiences and circumstances. But learning to lead isn't just about acquiring skills. No one's perfect, and as change makers, leaders have to be open to change in themselves. Leadership's a process, not simply an end in itself. We're never the finished article, but let's admit it, we don't take much time to invest in our own development as leaders. Well, since 2003, the CLAW Leadership Programme has been developing cultural leaders through intensive year-long fellowships, which are tailor-made for each individual, through residential courses, through development days, and through working with boards. In that time, over 1,700 people, including Simon Webb and Matt Peacock, have taken part in our programs. We bring together people who are in groups of about 25, very different from one another, deliberately so, to learn from difference. And quickly to end with a few things we've learned about leadership development over those few years. Firstly, one thing is certain. Leadership is essential for the success of creative and cultural organizations, and it's clear there's no shortage of leadership talent, aspiration, or ambition. The numbers keep growing. I've discovered that not everyone wants to run an institution or even work within one. People find different ways to lead. People are very generous in wanting to help the next generation, and in turn they learn from and are re-stimulated by them. It's a two-way thing. Leadership development for me is about learning, not about being taught. And people learn in different ways, at different speeds, and have different rhythms. And because of this, you have to be really flexible and not impose a set pattern or order on leadership development. Leadership development is about discovery, not theory. I think you can learn a huge amount from books, but the best way is from your own experience, from trying things and learning from others. I think discomfort is a really great way of learning, getting outside your comfort zone, getting outside your specialism, and really learning through international person-to-person exchange, just as is happening today, seeing the big picture. These are all integral parts of the development of all leaders. I feel really optimistic about the future of the cultural sector. I see talented, resilient, and creative people at all levels and in all types of organizations who will provide the leadership that culture needs. They will be open to ways of making and engaging with culture that we can't yet imagine. They'll need to be more reflective of and connected to the communities that we serve. And they'll have the courage, integrity, and most importantly, creativity to reimagine, redefine, refresh, and renew our orchestras, our other great arts institutions, and our whole cultural life. Thank you.